Distinguished panelists, fellow Rotarians, and guests, thank you for taking the time to be a part of this very important topic. Our district, District 7030, has committed over the past few years to play its...
You're muted, Sonia.
Has committed over the past few years to play its part in doing something about childhood obesity prevention. As people of action, the committee led by its chairperson, Virginia, has taken an active role in educating our communities. Together with the Healthy Caribbean Coalition and other strategic partners, we have embarked on a robust campaign to bring attention to this problem, which is evident in our children and ultimately manifests itself in adults as non-communicable diseases. This eminent panel this evening has been chosen to walk us through life's journey with tips and tricks to alleviate this problem in our generations. As we serve to change lives, our commitment as a Rotary District is to bring attention to and provide solutions for the main disease affecting our future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, let us be the catalyst for change and save our children. It starts with us. Thanks for signing on, and please be enlightened. Thanks very much.
Thank you, DG Sonia. It is a pleasure to have you give the welcoming address. And I am pleased. My name is Danielle Walwyn. I am the Advocacy Officer at the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, and I will be one of your moderators for this evening alongside Ms. Elizabeth Cox.
Hi, I'm Liz Cox from the Rotary Club of Garden City, and I will be working along with Danielle this evening to enlighten, engage, and excite you.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. So it is my pleasure to get us going with segment one. So segment one, we're starting at the very beginning. We are going to be talking about breastfeeding. And as one of our key panelists, Dr. Bernard, would say, we know that breastfeeding is key for the mom, the baby, as well as the wider population. And so to join us for segment one, I'm excited to kick off with phenomenal women who are involved with the Breastfeeding and Child Nutrition Foundation in Barbados. We have Dr. Alison Bernard, who is a pediatrician and chair of the foundation. We have Sister Andrea Scott, who should be joining us later, who is a registered nurse. And we also have Mrs. Catherine Brown, who's a public health researcher and mom. Welcome to these phenomenal ladies. I'm inviting them to turn on their cameras as we begin segment one. Awesome. Excellent. So Dr. Bernard, I'm gonna get started and jump right into it because I know we don't have a lot of time. So we know that breastfeeding is known as the core of infant nutrition and can impact a child's health well beyond the infancy stage. What link does breastfeeding have in protecting a child's health and preventing childhood obesity?
Hi, Danielle, and thank you to Rotary and HCC for inviting the BCNF to participate in the webinar. Okay, so to answer your really important question, WHO, or the World Health Organization, recommends exclusive breastfeeding of infants for the first 6 months of life, as breast milk contains all the nutrients that are required in the form of things like calcium and iron, vitamins and minerals, immunological compounds, and they help to promote optimal growth and sensory and cognitive development and protect against infection and chronic diseases. Breastfeeding is also associated with a reduction in childhood diseases, such as your common ear infections, gastroenteritis, and respiratory illnesses. Things like eczema, some cancers, and then diabetes also later in life. So we know that 1 in 3 children in Barbados and the region is overweight or obese, but also an important fact is that 77% of overweight children become overweight adults. with an earlier onset of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. But what you may not know, which a lot of people don't know, is that breastfeeding has the potential to reduce rates of overweight and obesity in children. Some studies suggest a 13% risk reduction in overweight or obesity. Some go as high as 56% risk reduction. And they also cite a 24% reduction in type 2 diabetes mellitus in children, in particular if they're exclusively breastfed. And there are also several mechanisms that have been cited and are being investigated to explain how breastfeeding protects against childhood obesity. I mean, all of this is so very important because of the heavy burden of obesity and NCDs that we have in Barbados and the region. And breast milk is the first nutrition and is an important first link in that fight against childhood obesity. But we have low breastfeeding rates, 19.7% as cited in 2012. And so it struggles to make a significant impact here and requires focus, interventions, and policies in order to fulfill its potential to improve child health.
Thanks, Dr. Bernard. So it's very clear, and I'm very happy that we're having this conversation about bringing awareness to that tie between breastfeeding and childhood obesity and acknowledging the benefits of breastfeeding in that childhood obesity and just the general health and wellness of children. So thanks, Dr. Bernard.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bernard, for that very interesting statistic of 19.7%. I'd like to turn to Catherine and ask, as Catherine is a mom who's breastfed her baby, could you share some of your good experiences breastfeeding your baby?
All right, yeah, sure, some good experiences. I mean, I guess I can focus on, I have one main one, but I'll start with the easy ones. Number one is bonding. A lot of time people quote, first-time moms especially quote that for a long time, they can't believe that this little creature is their son or their daughter, right? And I think that the breastfeeding experience really does kind of link that concept to the actual reality. Second of all, recovery. Physiologically speaking, we know that breastfeeding helps with your metabolism and reducing the weight that you've gained during pregnancy and shrinking your uterus. And I definitely felt that throughout my breastfeeding experience. But the main one that I want to stress, my good experience, was that it served as a bit of a nirvana during the struggles of postpartum. Okay. So during this time, you've had a baby, emotions are on high, hormones are reconfiguring, your body's undergoing major physical recovery from childbirth, you're lacking a ton of sleep, you're juggling the usual day-to-day house chores and family duties that you had even before a baby. But when you sit down with your baby to breastfeed, you have to relax to allow the milk to let down. So it sort of takes it takes it away and puts you in peace, and it forces you to stop and just breathe. So I really think it did help mental health for me and for mothers in general.
Wow, that's great information. I'm sure the mothers in the room or mothers to be in the room would recognize the importance of that breastfeeding bonding. And certainly it also has a lot to do with your mental state as well. So thank you a lot, Dr. Catherine Brown.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Catherine. So for reiterating the physical and mental benefits of breastfeeding. So again, we're hearing from Dr. Bernard in terms of the benefits for that baby, but we're also hearing from you in terms of the benefits for mom as well. And so Dr. Bernard, I'm just going to turn over to you. So we're talking about this supportive environment that we need for mothers to breastfeed. And so we understand that mothers face many challenges in breastfeeding and that a supportive policy protective environment is critical in encouraging breastfeeding practices, especially in the workplace. And so what do these policies look like, and what should our region be prioritizing right now?
Again, thanks, Danielle, for that question. I mean, that's a lot to unpack, to be honest with you, but here's some context. So in a study that we did in 2012 with the University of West Indies, about 40% of mothers cited that the reason they either mixed fed their babies or did not breastfeed at all was their return to work from maternity leave. So in my view, policies need to look like this. They must help to remove the barriers these mothers face against breastfeeding. and they must transform the workplaces and other spaces into breastfeeding friendly zones that create that culture of breastfeeding nationally. They should foster self-agency and autonomy and are not mother focused or father focused or family. They're all of these things and including nation focused. And they should support the sustainable development goals around things like ending hunger, improved health and well-being, gender equity, etc. So at the moment, we have paid maternity leave up to only 3 months, as most mothers will attest to and not be very happy with. And it makes attaining 6 months exclusive breastfeeding challenging for many mothers. There's also legislated paid paternity leave that's being discussed at the level of Parliament, I believe. But I think for the future, we need to be considering things like shared parental leave, as this could potentially be a cornerstone policy for gender equity in the workplace and in the home. But what the region needs to prioritize now is breastfeeding workplace policy as an important stepping stone as mothers, wait for possible extension of maternity leave and implementation of paternity leave. And the focus needs to be here because workplaces where mothers spend most of their waking lives. So the breastfeeding policy would create that culture that's supportive to mothers so that if they want to express their milk at work, they can. And it provides guidance for employers and employees on breastfeeding in the workplace. And some of the interventions could look like paid pump breaks, access to lactation rooms or spaces, education for all employees, including management, etc. But what I wanted to say here is it needs to be reinforced that the benefits of this policy are not just to the mother, but to all the employees, the employer, and nationally as well.
Thanks, Dr. Bernard. So what I'm hearing is we have a shared responsibility. So it goes beyond that immediate family and it's the workplace. And so I'm so glad that we have our attendees on today who are part of different workplaces and spaces who can take this information there. And we have advocates on who can continue to advocate for these related policies. Thank you so much, Dr. Bernard. We kind of know now where we need to go in terms of policy priorities.
Absolutely, Danielle. We do have Sister Scott on. Sister Scott, could you turn your camera on, please? Sister Scott? Perhaps she's having some technical difficulties. Can you hear us, Sister Scott? So perhaps
she did mention she's struggling to turn on.
She's unable to do so. All right, perhaps we can throw the question out to the two persons who are here, Dr. Bernard and Catherine. There are lots of myths surrounding breastfeeding, and that in itself leads to some challenges. So perhaps, Dr. Bernard, you can share with us some of the myths, because there are lots of myths like you don't drink milk, you can't produce milk, the nipples are too small, so baby wouldn't be able to latch on to it. So could you share some of those myths? And then Catherine will take up a question on the myths.
Well, some of the things that I've heard is that if you drink milk, you make more milk. That's one myth that is absolutely incorrect.
Okay.
The only way to make milk is by having that baby latch onto your breast, and the more baby breastfeeds, the more milk that you'll produce. It's a feedback mechanism, and that's how it works. It's the milk ejection reflex. It's very physiological, but the more baby's on, the more milk your body will produce. Some other myths, I guess one of the common myths is that breastfeeding will make your breast sag. That is, it is one of the ones that it is the first thing that some of the mothers here in Barbados mention, that it does. And that is not what happens. What happens is you put weight on and you lose weight during every pregnancy. And as you do that, your body loses that elasticity. And what I tell mothers all the time, whether you breastfeed or not, unfortunately, your breasts are going to sag. It has nothing to, so take the blame off of breastfeeding. Take the blame off of breastfeeding.
It has to be. It has something to do with gravity, right?
something to do with gravity. Yes, absolutely. So those are a couple of the ones that I hear commonly. Another myth is that help me out here, Catherine, if you've heard of anything.
The nipples? What about the nipples? The size of the nipples?
And well, not the nipples. The size of the breast does not determine how much milk you will produce. So you may have big breasts, so you might have small breasts, and it's not actually breast size that determines milk production. It's the amount of ducts that you have inside your breast tissue that determines how much milk you'll make. And some women with small breasts actually produce quite a lot of milk. Because if you have small breasts but a lot of ducts, you'll produce, the right amount of milk for your baby. Oh, Sister Scott is on. You can help us with maybe with a few more, Sister Scott.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I was having some technical challenges. So some of the myths that we commonly have here in Barbados, as we explained before, we commonly hear mothers saying, I cannot produce enough milk to breastfeed my baby exclusively. But all mothers produce the right amount of milk. What some mothers don't understand is that breast milk production is determined by how well the baby is latched to the breast, the frequency of breastfeeding, and how well the baby is removing milk with each breastfeeding. Mothers also need to remember that the newborn stomach is only the size of a hazelnut, so it does not take much to fill the baby's stomach. Another common breastfeeding myth here in Barbados: my breasts, they're too small. But we must remember that the size of the breast and the shape of the breast do not affect the ability to breastfeed and have nothing to do with how much milk you produce. Even mothers with flat nipples or who had breast surgery, they can still breastfeed. Another common myth: I cannot exclusively breastfeed my baby because I have to go back up to work. Before you return to work, you can start expressing so that you can have something stored and available when you return to work.
What is that?
Schedule time during the day to express your breast milk and feed your baby directly when you're at home. So those are some of the common myths we have here in Barbados.
Danielle?
Thank you, Sister Scott. And so I think we got a good overview of, again, the importance of breastfeeding. We heard that from Dr. Bernard, again, looking at the holistic child's health. We heard from Catherine about some of the benefits that she herself experienced from breastfeeding. And then we also heard about some of the myths that we need to be aware of, and some, as well as priority policies, as us as a region, really trying to tackle childhood obesity and trying to make spaces breastfeeding friendly need to prioritize. And so with that, I'm going to head into the Q&A segment where we hear a bit more from our panelists. So at this point, I'd like to encourage all of you to feel free to share some questions that you might have in the chat. And I'm going to invite our panelists once again to come onto camera to answer some questions. So I'm not seeing any in the Q&A, but I do have some. So for Dr. Bernard, can you explain the mechanisms or how exactly breastfeeding offers protection against childhood obesity? Oh, Dr. Bernard, sorry, you're on mute. That's okay.
Sorry about that. Right, so there are several mechanisms that have been reported as to explain how that link between breastfeeding and childhood obesity. And I mean, you've got to start with the breast milk. Breast milk has a lower protein content compared with formula, and higher protein contents are associated with increased what we call lipogenesis in medicine, but it's basically lipid synthesis or creation of fats, right? So higher protein, more fat production. Right. There's also a compound called leptin in breast milk, and that leptin suppresses the craving for food, and it also regulates the breakdown of calories, so that early breastfeeding is also linked with greater appetite control later on in life compared with formula. There are also some adult behaviors that are related to infant feeding. So for example, the adult propensity to want to, so for example, the bottle holds 8 ounces and you got to see your baby finish that 8-ounce bottle, whether that baby wants the 8 ounces or not. So overriding the infant's own satiety cue. And then of course is the inappropriate introduction of complementary feeding at weaning. So these are just a few of the mechanisms, but hopefully that's provided a little snapshot of some of the mechanisms for you.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Bernard. And I hope everyone is taking notes. I surely am. I'm coming to talk to Catherine. So Catherine, you gave us an overview of that positive experience, but we definitely do want the full picture. Can you give an idea of, or an overview of your entire breastfeeding experiences, so potentially some not so positive experiences that you might have had?
Sure, Danielle, yes. So yeah, breastfeeding is a joy and I would absolutely do it again. But of course, there were challenges. I mean, first of all, I was entirely and unexpectedly unprepared. I read several books about pregnancy, about childbirth, which touched on breastfeeding, but not once did I consider actually reading up more on breastfeeding. I just never thought I needed to. It certainly wasn't ever encouraged to me by anyone, because we have this assumption that it's a natural phenomenon. It'll come to us. Unfortunately, it's not always so easy. You know, despite a 10-minute session with a nurse at the hospital, you know, you're left to your own devices, and you know, you're too early in the game to know what questions to ask, to expect any complications. And you know, when they came on, you're really in a state of frenzy. So I had pain at latching, I had latching issues, I had discomfort and whatnot, and I never thought that would happen. And at that point I thought, okay, bring on the formula. I cannot deal with this. It got really bad because number one, I was unprepared. Number two, no one really talked about it. And number three, it's supposed to be natural. So if it's not working then. And the only reason I got through was because Dr. Bernard, I worked with her professionally before, and that's the only reason I knew what a breastfeeding consultant was. And luckily we worked together for a few months and I returned to work. Everything worked out fine. The issues went down. But then returning to work is a whole other conversation. You know, juggling work, juggling a baby. You know, I was lucky enough that I had a baby during COVID in the sense that I worked from home entirely. So I wasn't on a strict pumping schedule and I didn't have to go searching for secret nooks in the office space to pump. But at the same time, breastfeeding is a full-time job. You're on an unpredictable 3-hour couple schedule for feeding, and it's a lot. So breastfeeding, it was wonderful. It was difficult, but it takes perseverance to get through.
Thanks, Catherine. And again, I think that just highlights the need to, well, one, to have webinars like these we're talking about, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences, but to that workplace setting, to have those policies that Dr. Bernard was talking about. So thank you so much. I know we're tight on time, so I'd like to thank our segment 1 panelists so much for sharing your experiences and expertise. And Liz, I'm going to turn over to you to introduce segment 2.
Right, thank you, Danielle. I know we can go on and on about breastfeeding, but we must move on because we are on this journey, and this segment really speaks to taking you from the cradle to the table. This section will focus on preparing healthy meals for children. This section will also be a lot more interactive. And we do have 2 distinguished panelists, and I'd like to introduce them. We do have Miss Eden Augustus, who is multifaceted. She's a nutritionist, she's a chef, she's also a youth advocate for healthy carb-free collation. But hear this one, she is on the listing of Take a Chef. So if you want personalized, homemade food, very nicely done, you must check out Take a Chef. She's Trinidadian and she lives in Barbados. And the second panelist we have is Mrs. Dorothy Graham Charles from Antigua and Barbuda. She's a nutritionist, a member of the Caribbean Association of Nutritionists and Dietitians. And guess what? She's a top cyclist. I'm sure you would agree that these 2 persons are more than qualified to address us in this section. So my first question turns to, is for Dorothy. Dorothy, we just heard about the breastfeeding and the fact that it's the starting point of the nutrition for children. But as children get older, their preferences change. I know you have been a driving force behind health promotion in Antigua and Barbuda. Can you share briefly with us some of the challenges that parents face in providing healthy meals for their children.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's great to be here. And so just to preface you as to the deeper issue that we are dealing with. So parents are facing some issues with healthy eating, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But what we're really dealing with is the ultra-processed foods addiction crisis, right? We're dealing with the foods addiction crisis. And as advocates, health educators, and parents, and I'm a parent as well, it is important to understand that there is a multifactorial web of systems and levels of influence through interactional processes between the child or the adolescent and their environment. So the ultra-processed foods industry has been plaguing this generation, both the adults and the youth. And this has led to misperceived ideologies of healthy foods. So persons don't really understand what healthy is, as well as evolving addictions to sugar-sweetened, high sodium and high fat foods. So a major concern is the overconsumption of refined grains, sugar, hydrogenated fat, sodium additives, and preservatives. And so everyone has to play their part to provide a supportive environment with strong policies and a culture of safety where children are encouraged to pack healthy foods. Of course, the parent will provide these foods and assist in the process, that children won't feel bullied or teased at school. Also, an environment where healthier food choices are available and children are provided with a number of healthy options. So the challenges that parents face are that children are not wanting to eat home-prepared foods, that's one. Children not eating fruits and vegetables, thereby giving preference to junk foods. And as Dr. Bernard mentioned that the fruits and vegetables in this case, they are lower in calories, and so they have more fiber, more nutrients. They will help the children to feel fuller for longer. And if they're not having these, they're replacing them with high calorie foods, high fat, high sugar, high sodium, high calorie foods that, you know, they're not getting all the nutrients and they're not getting those low calorie fruits and vegetables. So that's the challenge in itself. And also what it does is messes with the leptin signaling system. And as you've heard before, you know, that satiety signal is distorted. And parents are busier now with greater demands for productivity and with less time to prepare foods, less time at home with the children to ensure that they're eating healthily, that they're exercising, and, you know, just those developmental processes that young children and into adolescence years need to experience. So we know that time is money, so there is less time for family and self-care, and this includes preparing meals.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. I think that's powerful. The ultra-processed foods, the addiction to the ultra-processed foods, the lack of, you know, children not wanting to use home-prepared food. And I think that also stems in school. They open their little carrier and they see things that their friends have. And so that kind of peer pressure really impacts on what they eat. But yes, I think you're right when you say that the parents are now having competing demands. And so it's a quick fix to have a packaged fruit or food or whatever it is that they have, they can pick up off the shelves. I think it's much easier. But yes, we do have to encourage them to think differently and encourage a lot more home cooking. All right, so thank you so much for that comment.
Agreed. Thanks, Liz. And I know I just want to bring in Eden here because I know Eden has some little ones as well. And so Eden, I wonder if you've encountered any of the challenges that Dorothy has mentioned.
Yeah, I've definitely encountered these issues as well. But for me, you know, having a nutrition background, trying to teach my children at home how to balance meals, but still trying to incorporate their likes has only been a challenge because of the outside influences. So, you know, we teach our kids how to eat healthy at home, but that all goes out when they're at school or engaging in those extracurricular activities. So what I normally do to try to have some sort of influence over what my children eat is when they are going to school or going to the other activities, I'll try to lunch as well as snacks, and then limit the amount of money that they carry to school. We also, within my family, have a saving system to encourage them to save. So we add to what they save once they reach a certain amount, and it works out for my family because the children now have the independence to pay for their games or toys once they eat what is provided for them.
That's awesome, Eden. So many practical and helpful strategies, so not just in the kitchen, but outside. So on that note, though, as you were mentioning, making these foods and making these foods at home, how do you engage your children in the kitchen?
Okay, so I can share like some fun tips with you. So some fun things that you could do to ensure that your children involved in the kitchen would be to just make cooking or even simple activities like putting away, groceries a happy time. Play music that your children like, or while they're washing vegetables, or teach your children how to crack an egg, do a silly dance with them, sing a song, maybe a song that they like, or just ask them, how their day was. And this is more so for children under 7, but can also be used for older children because, we know as parents what our children like. And this helps children to perceive kitchen time as a happy time with mommy and daddy, and they also feel helpful. And the younger they start, the easier it is for them to adapt. So in my household, I actually have a 12-year-old and an almost 11-year-old. We can't say 10, boys especially. So what we do is try to make it like a friendly competition. With kids, you have to make sure that they understand that it's just for fun. So we give them like a secret ingredient, simple things for the younger kids, and then ask them to come up with a meal or a snack, or even, ask them to peel something or who can make a sauce. And, as parents, we have to be prepared not to get upset because this could be a bit of a mess in our kitchen.
But a happy mess, I love that. Happy time in the kitchen. I love that, Eden. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hopefully, again, that our attendees are taking some notes. I see Mary in the chat saying that parents must lead by example, and I think you're doing a great job of that by including some movement and some happy time in the kitchen. Thanks, Eden.
You're welcome, Danielle. Also, I really like to use simple but nutritious recipes with the kids as well. I can share a small video with everyone, and this was actually filmed by my kids who also helped with the editing.
So this is another simple recipe. I call it citrus tea. Well, as you know, children normally eat with their eyes, and it's a very pretty drink. Most persons prefer the combination of mint and citrus, but for me, I really like the raspberry and pomegranate combination with citrus. So I've put in here 5 cups of filtered water, so just 1 tea bag. And for children, I recommend the non-caffeinated tea bags. And I have 1 large orange sliced. So I would normally wait about 30 minutes for the tea to be infused properly with the water. And as I said, you can use any combination that you like. That is to put it in the refrigerator for at least 3 hours and then enjoy. So this is one of my family favorite recipes, overnight oats. It's very simple, and the children, enjoy coming out and helping and putting it together. So I have all the ingredients already pre-measured, so let's go through the ingredients. So the base of it, it's either skim milk or almond milk, and this is a 1/2 cup. Then we have 1/2 cup of Greek yogurt, plain yogurt, no sugar added. a half cup of rolled oats, 1 tablespoon of chia seeds, 1 small banana sliced, and also 2 tablespoons of my favorite nuts, pistachio chopped. Just to give it a little extra pizzazz, I normally put like 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And for this recipe, I call this one the banana bread. So let's get started. To avoid a big mess, I normally take the yogurt and mix it into the milk first. So we just give it a small stir. And we add this. So then we want to add in the oats. And we give that a little stir. I've added in the banana as well as the spice and the pistachio, so you can see the layers. Everyone, so this dish is a little more complicated than the overnight oats, which is a breakfast item, as well as the citrus tea. So for this item, which I call the pasta primavera done Eden way, we use 6 ounces of whole wheat spaghetti, 1 small carrot finely sliced, 1 cup of mushroom, 1 cup of broccoli. This was made, this is fresh tomato paste, as well as pesto. I use 1 tablespoon of olive oil or sunflower oil, and I normally use 1 teaspoon of dried herbs as well as pepper flakes, just to give it that little extra flavor. Okay, so just to take you through what was done, I first cooked the whole wheat spaghetti in the fresh tomato and beet sauce, as well as the pesto sauce, and then I sauteed using the olive oil. I sauteed the vegetables. I like my vegetables al dente, as well as my family, so I only leave my vegetables to cook about 5 to 10 minutes tops. And then I added all the seasonings, a little bit of fresh garlic, some paprika, as well as some dried thyme, rosemary, and basil. And then I plated it. So this is the final product. And as you would have guessed, this is my citrus tea from before.
Okay, so these are just 3 simple recipes. Just to add, for the overnight oats, some children may prefer to mash the fruit. So if it's mango or banana or whatever their choice is, and to add it to the base, so there's some sort of natural sweetness to it. And also not shown in the video, but another simple and yummy recipe, especially for kids, is to use whatever seasonal fruits that you have, along with the juice of a small lime or lemon, and blend together. And this could be added to ice trays or maybe or even a small cup and freeze. And that's really, good, especially for children in the Caribbean, since it's really hot most days.
Wonderful. I think that some of our attendees will be making some of what you've just displayed this week. I for sure will be making that tea. I think that's very interesting, and you utilize some of the things that we can get right here in the Caribbean. But I just have a little question for you. I know all the recipes also will be shared with the attendees. So you will be getting, in addition to those that were displayed in action, you will get some additional recipes as well. And there are some fun recipes that I think that Eden would like to share with us as well. Would you share some fun recipes with us? Some easy, simple recipes. It was just mentioned, parents are busy, and so they want to have nutritious but quick and easy recipes.
Right, just some actually some fun healthy snacks. So this could include popcorn, We normally use in the Caribbean butter to make popcorn, but using a little bit of coconut oil instead is healthier, and it actually gives us a different kind of flavor. Make, homemade sweet potato or even English potato chips, because, you control the amount of salt that goes into this, to these snacks. And then the trick is to slice them really thin and bake them instead of frying them. And that also gets rid of the fat, the amount of fat that you put into these snacks. Another alternative would be to, make your homemade breadfruit, cassava, or plantain chips, the same way, slicing it very thin and bake it instead of frying. And or even frozen yogurt, or froyo as my children would call it, where you could use plain Greek yogurt as a base and allow your kids to choose the fruits of their liking. And then this is a very good alternative to ice cream, very healthy. Also just, using basic recipes that you find or that your kid might find, and replacing some of the basic ingredients. For example, replacing the white flour with whole wheat flour or oat flour. And I know that some persons might be saying, oat flour, that is so expensive. But the trick to making your own oat flour is just using and the same, pack of oats that you normally buy in the grocery, just blending it for a while, and that actually turns into flour. And once you start, adapting, start this with your children from young, they will adapt to it.
Thank you so much, Eden. I know that utilizing the fruits of the Caribbean is also very important, because we do have a lot of nutritious foods in the Caribbean itself. So, Dorothy, and in this segment, Dorothy spoke quite a bit about the policies, the strong policies that need to be introduced. Also, she spoke about the ultra-processed, the overuse of ultra-processed foods. I think that is very key, and our attendees should pay note to that. I love the idea of the vibrant colors, because people really, visuals and food, especially for children, is very, very important. So thank you so much for that. And I would like to go to the Q&A, because time is always upon us. There's no questions there, but I have one question for Dorothy. Dorothy, what are some of the challenges in the school environment? And that's key, because you mentioned, you prepare stuff at home, you tell kids about eating healthy at home, and they go to school, and there's peer pressure, there's a canteen. So what are some of the things in the school environment, the challenges in the school environment that you would like to mention to us tonight? And if you can just share with us, how can we get children to drink more water in a fun way?
Right, so as I've mentioned, I'm a mother myself, but I also grew up with a large proportion of boys in my community. And so I was up to some of the tricks to the trade. So parents, if you're not aware of this as yet, you need to be aware that sometimes children do have an economic system going on in the school where they have a bartering system, a trade system. You provide a healthy snack to your child or lunch, and they trade it in for money. And then they buy the unhealthy food. So that is something you can probably keep an eye out for. And that's really important to know as parents. Another thing is the underground system, trading system. Maybe staff sometimes do sell unhealthy foods, even in the midst of a healthy school policy. And so that's important to note, the peer pressure system that you spoke about as well, Elizabeth. But what we encourage schools to do is to have a school gardening program going, and I've actually started some of those programs in Antigua, and let me translate to the home. So there's gardening taking place at home, parents gardening with the children, parents cooking meals with children, and they're very proud to take it to school and say that I cooked this meal, they're proud of that. And to revisit eating at the table as a family, because even in the schools, we're giving them the fish, but we want to also teach them how to fish. And teaching them to fish is by helping them to prepare healthy meals at home, copycat versions, and some of the great ideas Eden shared with us. Turn off the devices and take the time to eat together. Put down the fork between bites. And that will help the children to be able to understand and appreciate and know when the satiety signal, the leptin, has kicked in. It takes about 20 minutes for us to realize that we are full, and many times the children are already full long before they realize that they have overeaten. So those are some important points.
Thank you, Dorothy. So it is important for the adults in the schools to guard against what is actually happening in school. So even though you might have policies in school, you still have to have that oversight by the adults in school. So thank you so much. I know time is always eating up on us, and I think it's time for a fit break. And our own Danielle has demonstrated, and she has a video to share with you. So please join us and join along with the break and listen to Danielle and take some tricks from Danielle. Over here.
Everyone, I hope everybody is enjoying the webinar so far. My name is Danielle Walwyn, and I'm the Advocacy Officer of the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, specifically with the Childhood Obesity Prevention Program. And so what I'm about to do with you is what I call a fit break or a movement break, just to get us moving. We've been sitting down for a while, and so I always encourage everyone to integrate these into your meetings, integrate them into your events that you might have, especially events where you're mostly sitting down. So at this point, I'm going to invite everybody to stand up. So as you know, throughout the webinar today, we've been talking about eating well and living well throughout the years, right? So I have picked 3 songs, and we're going to be moving to them. Each song is from a different age category, so have some fun with it. And I'm going to be here leading, so all you have to do is follow me. Are you ready?
Mommy shark, do 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 do, mommy shark. Daddy shark, do 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 do, daddy shark, do 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 do, daddy shark, do 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 do, daddy shark. Grandma shark, do 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 do, grandma shark, do 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 do, grandma shark, do 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 do, grandma shark.
Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana. Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze zuhambe nami. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami. Me mind on fire, me soul on fire, feeling hot, hot, hot.
that. I hope that the parents aren't mad at me for including that first song, but it's just so good. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got to move. I hope that you're smiling and feeling those endorphins. Again, feel free to integrate these movement breaks or fit breaks into any meeting, any event that you might have, any family gathering that you might have. They're really fun. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Hello
so
again.
Much. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Danielle. That was most energizing, especially that last song. I think everybody would have been moving. I was moving. We do have one question in the chat, and somebody is asking about the opinion about unhealthy food at the school canteens, that the school canteens sell. So perhaps, Dorothy, can you take that question, please?
What was the question? I heard you, but what is the specific question?
The question is about how do you deal with unhealthy food being sold at school canteens?
So that has to be at the policy level, but the parents also has to give some input. So, and it has to be, okay, not just one parent saying that I'm not too pleased with the food that's being served, because maybe you come across as a complainer. But if parents can come together and say, you know, this is what we'd like. For example, at my daughter's school, they serve ice pop, and I don't give my child money to purchase ice pop, but she comes to the vehicle in the afternoon with ice pop. Her friends purchases her one, you know? And so I ended, you know, I have to end up for her to purchase the ice pop. But then my way of dealing with it is talking to teacher. Can you do a healthier version of ice pop? So not just the crystal mix. Can you do like a lemonade with brown sugar and less sugar? You know, because I do not give my child sugary beverages to drink. So, you know, it's kind of having meeting the teachers and the students and the parents at a common place. So if you say to your child, I'm not giving you money to purchase this or that, the child will still get the unhealthy food. But can we teach them how to make healthier choices within what's going on? So the parents will have to do that, as well as the government system has to ensure that right across the island, these policies are enforced and that they are governed accordingly.
All right, thank you. Yes, it obviously will take you know, multi-pronged approach to get that going and get it right as well. All right, so could I hand over to Daniel to take us into the golden years?
Thank you, Liz. It is my pleasure actually to take us into the golden years. I'm very excited about this particular panel where we're going to be talking about the golden years, some things that persons living in the golden years really need to be mindful of. We're going to talk about some community engagement activities that really focus on building a community and supporting people of all ages, including those in the golden years. So it is my pleasure. We have three amazing panelists. Dr. Christine Luckham. She is the head of Clinical Geriatrics Department at the University Hospital of Paramaribo. Miss Wendy Sagbir Ramatarsingh. She is part of the Rotary Club of Paramaribo. And last but not least, Miss Hetty Heyman. She is a retired registered nurse and an advocate for older adults and those in their golden years. So welcome, panelists. I invite you to turn your cameras on. I'm looking forward, Liz and I are looking forward to speaking with you. And I know time is upon us, so I'm going to jump right into it. So my first question is to Dr. Luckham. What are 5 things that older adults living their golden years, what are some 5 things that they should be mindful of when we're talking about holistic health? Over to you.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Danielle. I'm happy to put in my 2 cents on this topic. There are many things that people can do in their golden years to improve their health. And I'll be mentioning 5 specific things, but before I do that, I would like to say that we as a society should understand or realize that the golden years are meant to live our best life. They're not there to prepare for the end. So we should have fun and work on our health and work on our happiness. And anything that disrupts that shouldn't be considered, oh, it's old age, but should just be considered a disruption that needs to be checked and needs to be dealt with. For instance, losing weight or eating less. A lot of the times we hear, oh, that's just part of old age, but it should be considered as a medical condition and not everything is old age. 5 things that I would like to name that specifically could help, not only with physical health, but also with mental health. The first one is one of the most known ones is no smoking and limited alcohol. I said limited alcohol. I did not say no alcohol. So please, a little bit alcohol is permitted, but no smoking. The second thing is healthy eating. And I think Elizabeth said it just now, whatever is in season. The Caribbean has so many bountiful fruits and vegetables. Whatever is in season is okay. Physical activity, you do not need to be running a marathon or a half a marathon to be healthy. Slow-paced physical activity or even physical activity sitting down, which is possible, will boost your immune system and lower your risks for falls. So that's good. And 2 things that are neglected often is brain activity. If puzzling is not your thing, that's okay. There are a lot of other options out there, meaning playing board games with the grandkids or with your own kids are also a very good option. And last, very important, socializing. I cannot stress enough how important socializing is. It could be in person, going to clubs, going to church, going to Rotary meetings. But if COVID doesn't allow this, even socializing via the phone, Zoom meetings, FaceTime, even talking to your neighbor at a distance in the yard is also good enough. So those are the 5 things I think we should pay attention to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Welcome. So helpful. So again, painting that holistic picture of not just physical, so not just what we see, but also emotional, also mental. And I know that socializing looks a little different now. So thank you for pointing out, other ways that we can socialize virtually. So again, really emphasizing, and I really like your perspective too on golden years, meaning years to live our best lives. I think that's something that coming out of this segment, we can really highlight. So thank you, Dr. Akram.
Thank you, Daniel. When we were preparing for this webinar and we were chatting with Hedy, I can tell you, you're true inspiration. You're a true inspiration. You are definitely living your best life. And in chatting with you, it is something to really take home, and we admire you. We admire you a lot. But how have you prioritized taking care not only of your physical health? It was just mentioned by Dr. Lakam. It is not just eating, but it's also looking at inculcating the right mindset. Can you share with us some of the tips that you have included in your life in the golden years that make you so happy, so able-bodied? Because I know you're doing your garden and all of that. So please share with us.
Yes, I'm 75 years, but I'm very young at heart. And I try to commune with younger people, learn from them, and keep pace with all the dances and things like that. I keep up my mental health. I listen to classic music, and most of all, golden oldies, love songs. That's my thing. I have plenty self-confidence. I keep doing exercises. I'm in a club for elderly people. I maintain a positive attitude. That's something that I have since I was a child. I stimulate my cognitive ability because I don't like puzzling, but I like reading books and other little things, clean up my house. And so I do regular physical tests to strengthen early detection. That is very important. I do not smoke. I do not drink alcohol, but that doesn't mean that once in a while I can take a little snip of, how you call it, that blood wine, you know, simple wine. I like it, yes. And I keep my empathic ability high, and I prevent stressful situations because I know what stress is. I am a past chief nursing officer of Suriname. I did so many things for home health care and all kind of those things. I try to keep a good diet, not eating Kentucky things and, you know, and I had shingles, so it's very important for me to keep up my immunity system. So I eat healthy food that I grow in my own garden. My husband, we are married more than 50 years. I have really a nice husband. I love him very much. And he sees when I am stressful, and then he says, go to bed. I come from a family of 10 children. I am the third child as a girl, and you can imagine what that means. Heidi, your brother has poop, go and wash. So since I'm a child, I take care of people. I start taking care of my family. And all of my brothers and sisters, I have left 3 brothers already are gone to heaven. So we are the rest, we have our group chat and we get together, and really I enjoy my golden years, and I pray to God to live very long in good health. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hetty. You're definitely living your best life right now. I love the idea and the thought that you said that you naturally have a positive mindset, because I think that is very, very important as you go into the golden years and not think or be bogged down by thinking I'm getting older and all of these things are supposed to be happening to you. I think what is key that you also mentioned is that annual physical check that you're actually doing, because the earlier you know that something is going wrong, and you know that there are lots of nurses on the call tonight, that they are silent, diseases and sicknesses, and early corrective action could be taken if you have that annual physical exam. So that's a big takeaway in terms of, I'm sure the audience would recognize a lot of persons. I know the Caribbean people is like, if I don't know, that's okay, I don't want to know. But I think words of wisdom coming from Hetty tonight will make a change in that. So thank you so much, Hetty.
Yes, a little thing I want to add is that we should take care of the dental care for old people, because they lose their teeth and the children say, oh, it's old age. But they don't think that if they don't have, how you call it, this, I don't know the name in English, artificial teeth, let me call it so, that they will have pain on their stomach. They cannot chew good, So, and dental care is very expensive, but it is very important for the old people. So that is my last comment.
Thank you so much for that comment.
Thanks, Ms. Hetty. And Doc, would you say that she got ticked off all 5 of those points that you brought up earlier?
Yes, and some.
And some, agreed. And so, Ms. Hetty, I remember in speaking with you, before the webinar, you spoke so much about how important your community was. And I remember you speaking about your grandchildren. And, you know, I really want to turn this over to Wendy, because Wendy's so involved with the community and is, you know, leading on projects that try and bring communities together and are appropriate for all ages. And so, Wendy, I'm not going to give any surprises up, but I want you to introduce something that you have been doing with your Rotary Club and how it's really brought this community together and focused on making healthy foods more accessible.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for the opportunity given to share with you the project, Therapeutical Gardening for Seniors, that was executed in Suriname to prioritize the access to healthy foods at the golden age. And also Mrs. Haiti mentioned this, that food is an important aspect at the golden age. So actually it was during the Corona crisis that affected the entire community, including the elderly, when the elderly got tied to their home. So then, of course, the question was raised, you can have several initiatives, but do it fit the needs of the elderly themselves? So we went out and we questioned them about it. And it became clear that one of their specific wishes were to be able to go to their garden and to feel happy about it. So that's where the idea came from, the therapeutic gardening for senior citizens. Furthermore, having your own garden also helps senior citizens to put healthy and fresh food on the table. Because gardening does not stop you even in your old age. Even if you are less mobile, you do not have much strength, or you have limited mobility, gardening can bring you benefits. It keeps your body fit, it keeps you healthy, and it keeps your mind alert. So elderly people who stay active in their garden keep their bodies and minds healthy. But then we also have some seniors with less mobility. So what we came up with is a basket, you can say a table on legs. So when these seniors are growing their vegetables or their flowers, they can simply put a chair next to their table, to their mobile table, and they can do their gardening. And in Suriname, what also was nice to do was that we engaged the community. For example, the manufacturing of those mobile tables were done by the inmates of the Penitentiary Institute in Suriname. So by doing that, by making them or engaging them to make the bins for the elders, they got a chance to earn some money, and they were also contributing to society in their own re-socialization projects. So also a youth organization was involved, and for each elder, we linked one youth to support them and to grow together fruit, vegetables, and flowers. And during these activities, we can see that the youth and the elder were exchanging stories, and they were creating a new horizon, sharing for each other, supporting each other, and sharing good laughs and companionship. So that was the spin-off of the project that we also had and included in the engagement with our seniors.
Oh, wonderful, Wendy. Thanks so much for sharing that. So not only, again, so you highlighted the benefits that gardening can have for the golden years. And I think Ms. Heidi can, she can even share her experiences because she's an avid backyard gardener. But that it's so impressive that that initiative was also able to bring together a community. Yes. And I think that generational gap too between the younger people and those living their golden years. So kudos to you on that initiative. And a question I had was whether you would recommend it to other people, but it seems like it's just a win-win all around.
Yes, definitely. If you are willing to do this in the district, if you are willing to make it a project to your Rotary Club, please to contact us. We will share our information. We will share the experience that we have so we can lay it out for every senior in the district 7030.
Awesome. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you all. I think that transforming the way we eat, this journey through life's course that ended in the golden years was well worth attending and listening to. I think what you have shared here, I think it's remarkable, especially for older persons. And we do have older Rotarians. We do have clubs that have mostly older Rotarians as well. So I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways from here. But I just really wanted to touch on the 5 points that Dr. Luckham mentioned. When she mentioned alcohol, I got a little nervous there because I'm thinking, I'm not going to have my glass of wine. So no smoking, limited alcohol, I mean, as she rightly said. Eating healthy is very, very important. Physical activity, brain activity, and we've seen that with Hetty. Hetty's said she's naturally positive. Socializing, which is very, very important because that helps too with the brain activity. Hetty, thank you so much for sharing your life with us. Like I said, you're a true inspiration. And then it comes to our Rotary Club. That was an awesome project. I think that it really combines so many areas, and the spin-off I think was really, really very, very impressive, where it created that mesh with the generational gap. And I think that's really, really awesome. Now, the benefits of gardening, and I think what you did is what Rotary International always encourages us to do. Find out what people want. Don't assume they want something. So I think that was key in your project, because then you heard everybody wanted to do some amount of gardening, and that is what helped them. And definitely in terms of their own activity, the fact that you were able to get the inmates as well involved, it's a really great project. I'm sure that persons in the district will be contacting you to get some information on that project, because it is a project, I must tell all attendees, that is worth replicating. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't see any questions in the Q&A box. I wondered whether Dr. Luckham could probably I can ask her a question on what are some of the things you think that the older persons should be eating? What are some of the things? Because Hetty talked about dentures and making sure you take care of your dental hygiene and all of that. So we want to share some of what you think that the older persons might be interested in eating.
Well, like we heard from what children must be eating and babies and what's healthy, the main problem that elderly have is that the way they consume their food. Like I said, if people stop eating or they start eating less, it is always considered part of aging. But what's important is just like what the young adults would be eating, that's the same thing that the elderly must be eating. So there's not much of a difference in that. The only thing that we say that depending on what kind of chronic disease they have, that would determine if they need to eat more proteins or less proteins or what. So with the younger generation, we can generalize more, but with the older generation, it is really tailor-made to that person. But the difficulty or the important thing is it doesn't matter how they eat it. If, like Sister Heyman said, that if the dentures are giving them problems, then maybe they don't have money to get new dentures because those are pretty expensive, or they're not able to go to a dentist, then just make shakes, just make smoothies. I mean, I sometimes make a joke and said, the rice and the chicken and the greens and the saltfish, put it in the blender, and give them a smoothie. It doesn't matter how it goes in once the nutrition's enter their body. So make it fun for them, just like with kids, make it fun for them. They don't need to have pain, don't force them. Just once it goes in, we're good.
Thank you so much. You know, they're saying twice a child, once an adult, and I think that really speaks to the older person, because the older person sometimes really go back to their childhood, and because of a combination of things. It could be their dentures or no dentures, or they just don't like things and they're so picky with things. So thank you so much for sharing that information. And this really concludes our third segment, which is Into the Golden Years. And I would like to ask Danielle if she wants to add anything as we close this end of the webinar.
Thanks, Liz. Nothing more. I think our panelists were fantastic. I really appreciated the journey that we took. So we started off with segment 1, where we had our ladies from BCNF talking about breastfeeding. And I think, again, it's important for us when we're thinking about this whole of society, multi-pronged approach to childhood obesity to remember that breastfeeding is that first source of nutrition. That's where we start. And that, you know, what happens at the breastfeeding stage can impact the child later on. Then we went to the fun segment 2, where we had Eden and Dorothy sharing kind of what's happening in, you know, the school environment, and Eden showing those examples, and that was awesome. And I think from there we got some really good energy about what can happen in the kitchen. And then of course ending with the golden years and just some things that I think, yes, those points were relevant for those living in the golden years, but I think all of us can take some points from that too, right, Liz?
Absolutely.
So again, a huge kudos to our panelists for taking us through that journey.
Yeah, and
Thanks,
thank you, and thank you for the fit break. I think that kind of added the icing on the cake to this webinar. So thank you again for that. So we are at the end, and I would like to ask Maisha Hudson, who is the Executive Director of Healthy Caribbean Coalition, to give us some closing remarks and to also usher in the vote of thanks. So Maisha.
I'd like to thank the team at Rotary and for all of your support. This has been an excellent partnership from the time Virginia reached out to us, you know, last year and said she would like to work with the HCC in a number of initiatives, in particular webinars in support of childhood obesity prevention. It's been such a wonderful journey, and I was just messaging Virginia, telling her that this particular webinar, I've been so impressed with her vision to start from the womb through to older age. It's just been such a wonderful journey to see over the course of the webinar. An excellent moderation from Danielle. The panelists were wonderful, from panelists in Barbados through to colleagues in Antigua and then to Suriname and across the region. Really quite, you know, excellent discussions. And I've got some takeaways and thinking already of how we can use some quotes and some of the recipes from Eden and my own personal family. So that was wonderful. Thanks to all of the Rotarians again. Thanks to the HCC team, all of those who worked in the background, Sean, Carrie, etc. It's been a wonderful webinar, and thank you to all of you who attended for your support, and have a lovely evening.